I'm a successful wedding photographer, but my family calls it a hobby. When I helped my brother's wedding, they accused me of ruining his special day and my dad called me an embarrassment in front of everyone. I, 32M, run a successful wedding photography business in Seattle. Started it 5 years ago after working as a freelancer for almost 8 years. Now I have a team of 6 photographers and we handle about 80 weddings per year. My business is doing well and I'm proud of what I built. My family situation is complicated. My mom died when I was 16 and my brother Tyler, 28M, was 12. Dad remarried Patricia, 47F, 8 months later. Patricia made it clear from day one that she wanted no reminders of mom around the house. She packed away all mom's photos, threw out her kitchen items, and even painted over the wall where mom had written our heights as kids. Dad went along with everything Patricia wanted. Tyler adapted quickly to the new setup. He called Patricia mom within 6 months and seemed happy with the arrangement. I couldn't do it. Every time I saw Patricia in mom's kitchen or sitting in mom's chair, something inside me rebelled. Patricia noticed my resistance and started making comments about how I was holding the family back from moving forward. When college time came, Dad told me I needed to figure out my own finances because real men pay their own way. I worked 3 part-time jobs while studying and took out student loans. Meanwhile, Tyler got his full ride to an expensive private college paid by Dad and Patricia. When I asked Dad about the difference in treatment, he said Tyler was more responsible with money and deserved the investment. After college, I started freelance photography while working at a camera store. Patricia would ask about my work at family dinners and then make comments about how photography wasn't a real career and I should get a proper job like Tyler, who went into accounting. She'd compare my beat-up Honda to Tyler's new BMW that Dad bought him as a graduation gift. The breaking point came 4 years ago. I went to the family house to pick up some of mom's jewelry that Dad had promised me years earlier. The house was empty with a sold sign in the yard. Dad and Patricia had moved to a condo without telling me. When I called Dad, he said they decided to downsize and had donated mom's remaining belongings to charity. He told me I was being dramatic when I got upset about losing the last pieces of mom I had left. I stopped talking to Dad and Patricia after that. Tyler tried to play peacekeeper for a while, but eventually he stopped calling too. We'd see each other maybe twice a year at distant relatives' events and exchange pleasantries, but that was it. 3 months ago, Tyler called me directly. He was getting married to his girlfriend Rebecca, 26F, and wanted me to come to the wedding. He said he missed having me around and wanted to fix our relationship. I was surprised but agreed to attend. Tyler mentioned they already had a photographer booked, so I offered to bring my camera as a backup or to take some candid shots of the family. He said that wasn't necessary but thanked me for offering. The wedding was last Saturday at a fancy venue in Bellevue. I arrived wearing my best suit and brought a small gift. Tyler seemed genuinely happy to see me when I walked in. He introduced me to Rebecca, who was polite but seemed to know very little about me. Tyler had apparently not talked about our family situation much. During cocktail hour, Patricia approached me. She looked me up and down and commented that I looked better than she expected for someone in my line of work. She asked if I was still doing the photography thing or if I had gotten a real job yet. Before I could answer, she moved on to talk to other guests. The seating chart had me at table 12, near the back of the room. Most of Tyler's college friends and Rebecca's work colleagues were at the front tables near the family. I sat with some distant cousins I barely knew. During dinner, Dad walked over to my table. He had been drinking and his voice was louder than normal. He started talking about how surprised he was to see me there since Tyler hadn't mentioned inviting me. He said he hoped I wasn't planning to cause any drama or make the day about myself like I always did. Patricia appeared next to him and added that she hoped I understood this was Tyler's special day and not an opportunity for me to network for my little hobby business. The conversation was loud enough that other people at nearby tables turned to look. One of Rebecca's aunts asked if everything was okay. Dad waved her off and said family business was complicated sometimes. He told me I should probably leave early to avoid any awkwardness. I excused myself from the table and went to the restroom to collect my thoughts. When I came back, I decided to just finish dinner quietly and leave during the dancing. As I walked past the kitchen area toward my table, I noticed the catering staff setting up for the main course service. I recognized the head server immediately. It was Jake, who used to work for my biggest competitor before the company went under last year. I had hired Jake and 2 other photographers from that business when they needed work. Jake saw me and came over looking confused. He asked what I was doing there as a guest. I asked him the same question about why he was serving food instead of taking photos. That's when Jake explained that the catering company had hired him for extra income between photo shoots. He said the original photographer for the wedding had canceled 2 weeks ago due to a family emergency, and the couple had been scrambling to find a replacement. Jake told me the venue coordinator was stressed because they couldn't find anyone available on such short notice. The couple had decided to just use disposable cameras on the tables and ask guests to take photos with their phones. Jake mentioned that Tyler had seemed really disappointed about not having professional photos of his wedding. I asked Jake if he was sure about the photographer canceling. He said yes, and that Rebecca had been calling photography studios all week trying to find someone. I realized Tyler had lied to me about already having a photographer. He had turned down my offer to help, and now his wedding wouldn't have professional photos. I found the venue coordinator and explained that I was Tyler's brother and a professional photographer. I offered to step in and cover the wedding at no charge as a gift to the couple. The coordinator was relieved and said she would check with Tyler and Rebecca right away. She came back 10 minutes later looking embarrassed. She said Tyler had declined my offer and asked her to tell me that everything was handled. When I pressed for details, she admitted that Tyler's exact words were that he didn't want charity from someone who couldn't even afford a decent suit. I stood there for a moment processing what had happened. Tyler had lied about having a photographer, rejected my help twice, and insulted me to the venue staff. Meanwhile, Dad and Patricia had publicly humiliated me in front of the other guests. I decided I was done being treated like a second-class family member. I went back to Jake and told him I was leaving but had an idea. I explained the situation and asked if he wanted to make some extra money doing photography instead of serving food. Jake was interested since photography paid better than catering work. I told him I would pay him $2,000 cash to photograph the rest of the wedding as a freelancer under my business name. I went to my car and got my camera equipment. I always keep a backup camera and lenses in my trunk for emergencies. I gave Jake my equipment and a quick briefing on what shots to prioritize. Then I called my assistant Emma and asked her to drive to the venue with more equipment and help Jake with the reception coverage. I found the venue coordinator again and told her that Jake would be handling photography for the remainder of the evening under my business name. I gave her my business card and said any questions about the service should be directed to me. Then I left the venue. Emma texted me updates throughout the evening. She and Jake captured the cake cutting, first dance, and all the typical wedding moments. They got great shots of Tyler and Rebecca looking happy, and the family celebrating together. By all accounts, it was beautiful photography that Tyler and Rebecca would treasure. On Sunday morning, I got a call from Tyler. He was furious. He said I had humiliated him by hiring photographers without permission and making him look like he couldn't afford proper wedding coverage. He accused me of trying to upstage him on his wedding day and making everything about my business. I explained that I was just trying to help after learning his photographer had canceled. Tyler said that was impossible because they had never hired a photographer in the first place. He admitted they had decided to skip professional photos to save money for their honeymoon. Tyler said Dad and Patricia were right about me always causing drama. He said I had proven that I couldn't be trusted to put family first. Rebecca had apparently been mortified when she learned that Tyler's brother had hired photographers without discussing it with him first. I told Tyler that if he didn't want professional photos of his wedding, Jake and Emma could delete all the images. Tyler said it was too late because other guests had already seen the photographers working and were asking about the pictures. The call ended with Tyler saying he needed space to think about whether he wanted me in his life at all. He said I had ruined what should have been the happiest day of his life by making it about my need to prove something. I sent Jake his payment and told him to keep the photos unless Tyler specifically requested them. Emma returned my equipment and said the wedding had been beautiful despite the family drama. Now I'm wondering if I made a mistake. I was trying to help Tyler have good photos of his wedding, but he sees it as me overstepping boundaries and showing off. Dad and Patricia are probably telling everyone that I crashed the wedding and forced my services on Tyler for attention. Part of me thinks Tyler should be grateful that his wedding was professionally photographed for free. But I can also see how my actions might have made him uncomfortable if he really didn't want the photos in the first place. I haven't heard from any family members since Tyler's call on Sunday. I'm not sure if I should reach out to try to explain my side, or just wait for things to calm down. Was I wrong to arrange photography for Tyler's wedding without his explicit permission? I thought I was doing something nice, but maybe I just made everything worse. Update 1: I got a lot of responses on my original post telling me I did nothing wrong. Some people said my family sounds toxic and I should go no contact. Others said I should have just minded my own business at the wedding. I appreciate everyone who took time to respond. Things have gotten more complicated since I posted. Tyler did end up wanting the wedding photos after all, but not in the way I expected. 2 days after my original post, Rebecca called me directly. She got my number from the business card I left with the venue coordinator. Rebecca said she wanted to apologize for Tyler's reaction and explain what really happened. She told me that Tyler had been stressed about not having wedding photos but was too proud to ask Dad for more money. They had originally budgeted for a photographer but had to cancel when Rebecca's parents pulled out of paying for part of the wedding at the last minute. Her parents had gotten divorced 6 months earlier and were both dealing with legal bills. Rebecca said Tyler was embarrassed about having to cut corners on their wedding. He had been trying to put on a brave face about using disposable cameras, but she could tell he was disappointed. When Jake and Emma showed up with professional equipment, Tyler panicked because he thought it would be obvious to everyone that they couldn't afford proper photography. Rebecca asked if she could see the photos Jake and Emma took. I told her I would need Tyler's permission since it was his wedding. She said she would handle Tyler and asked me to send her a link to a private gallery with the images. I created an online gallery with about 200 of the best shots from the evening. Jake and Emma had done excellent work. The photos captured all the important moments and everyone looked happy and natural. There were beautiful shots of Tyler and Rebecca during their first dance, candid moments of the families celebrating, and artistic photos of the venue and decorations. Rebecca called me after looking through the gallery. She was crying on the phone and said the photos were more beautiful than anything she had imagined for their wedding. She said she had been worried they would have no good pictures to show their future children, but now they had professional images that captured everything perfectly. She asked how much I charged for wedding photography. When I told her my normal rate was $4,000 for full-day coverage, she went quiet for a long time. She said she had no idea I ran such a successful business and that Tyler had never mentioned how accomplished I was. Rebecca asked if Tyler could see the photos. I said yes, but that I wanted to clear the air with him first about what happened at the wedding. She arranged for the three of us to meet for coffee that Saturday. Tyler looked uncomfortable when we sat down at the coffee shop. He started by saying he owed me an apology for how he reacted after the wedding. He said stress had made him respond badly to what was actually a generous gesture. I asked Tyler why he had lied about already having a photographer when I offered to help. He looked down at his coffee cup and said he was embarrassed about their financial situation. He said Dad and Patricia were always talking about how successful Rebecca's family was, and he didn't want to admit they couldn't afford all the wedding expenses. Tyler explained that when their original photographer canceled, he and Rebecca had decided to just make the best of using phone cameras. He said he turned down my offer to help because he was afraid I would judge them for not being able to pay for proper photography. Rebecca jumped in and said she had been the one to suggest they skip professional photos to save money. She said her parents' divorce had been expensive and messy, and she didn't want to ask them for more help with wedding costs. She and Tyler had agreed to spend the photography money on their honeymoon instead. Tyler said when he saw Jake and Emma working at the reception, he assumed I was trying to show off my business connections and make him look bad in front of Rebecca's family. He said he spent the whole evening worried that people would think he was too cheap to hire his own photographer. I told Tyler that I had only arranged the photography after learning from Jake that their photographer had canceled. I explained that I thought they were disappointed about not having professional photos and I wanted to help. I said I never intended to embarrass him or make him uncomfortable. Tyler said he realized after talking to Rebecca that I had been trying to do something nice for them. He said he was sorry for assuming the worst about my motivations. Rebecca added that she was grateful I had stepped in because now they had beautiful photos of their wedding day. Then Tyler brought up something I hadn't expected. He said Dad and Patricia were telling people at their country club that I had crashed his wedding and forced photography services on him for publicity. He said they were claiming I was desperate for business and used his wedding as a marketing opportunity. Tyler said he had tried to correct their version of events, but Dad and Patricia kept insisting I had acted inappropriately. He said Patricia had been calling Rebecca's family members to apologize for my behavior at the wedding. Rebecca looked angry when Tyler mentioned this. She said Patricia had called Rebecca's mother and aunt to explain that Tyler's brother had boundary issues and they were sorry if I had made anyone uncomfortable. Rebecca said her family had been confused by the call since they thought the photographers were wonderful and very professional. Tyler said he wanted to set the record straight with Dad and Patricia about what really happened. He planned to tell them that he had requested the photography and that I had done him a favor, not caused a problem. I asked Tyler if he was sure he wanted to get involved in drama with Dad and Patricia over this. He said yes because they were spreading lies about me and it wasn't fair. Rebecca agreed and said she was tired of Patricia making decisions about their family relationships. We talked for another hour about our family history. Tyler admitted that he had gone along with Dad and Patricia's treatment of me because it was easier than standing up to them. He said he realized after his wedding that their behavior toward me had been wrong for years. Tyler asked if we could start over with our relationship. He said he missed having a brother and wanted to make things right between us. Rebecca said she hoped I would be part of their lives going forward. I agreed to work on rebuilding our relationship, but I told Tyler I wasn't interested in having contact with Dad and Patricia. I said too much had happened over the years for me to trust them again. Tyler said he understood and wouldn't pressure me to reconcile with them. Before we left the coffee shop, Rebecca asked about paying me for the wedding photography. I told her the photos were my wedding gift to them and I didn't want any payment. She insisted on at least covering Jake and Emma's time, so I agreed to let her pay them directly. Tyler and Rebecca invited me to dinner at their apartment the following week. It was the first time I had been to Tyler's place, and I was surprised by how nice it was. Rebecca showed me their wedding album, which she had made using the photos Jake and Emma took. The evening went well until Tyler mentioned that Dad had been calling him repeatedly since our coffee meeting. Tyler said Dad was upset about Tyler planning to correct the story about what happened at the wedding. Dad apparently felt that Tyler was choosing sides against family. Tyler said Patricia had also been pressuring him to cut contact with me again. She told Tyler that I was manipulative and would cause problems in his marriage if he let me back into his life. This is where things took an unexpected turn. Rebecca said she had been getting phone calls from Patricia as well. Patricia had been calling Rebecca at work to share stories about my supposedly problematic behavior over the years. Patricia told Rebecca that I had always been jealous of Tyler and would try to sabotage their marriage. Rebecca said Patricia's calls were becoming frequent and inappropriate. Patricia had started questioning Rebecca about their finances and suggesting that I might try to take advantage of them financially. Rebecca said she had stopped answering Patricia's calls because they made her uncomfortable. Tyler looked upset when Rebecca shared this information. He said he had no idea Patricia was contacting Rebecca directly. He admitted that Patricia had been controlling about his relationships before, but he hadn't realized she was now trying to interfere in his marriage. The dinner ended with Tyler saying he needed to have a serious conversation with Dad and Patricia about boundaries. He said he couldn't have them spreading lies about me or harassing Rebecca about our family relationships. I left Tyler's apartment feeling cautiously optimistic about rebuilding our relationship, but worried about what Dad and Patricia might do if they felt like they were losing control over Tyler. Update 2: The situation with my family has escalated in ways I didn't expect. Tyler did confront Dad and Patricia about their behavior, but it backfired spectacularly. Tyler called Dad the day after our dinner and asked to meet in person to discuss what happened at the wedding. Dad agreed, probably expecting Tyler to apologize for defending me. Instead, Tyler told Dad and Patricia the truth about the photography situation and asked them to stop spreading false information about me. According to Tyler, Dad got angry immediately. Dad said Tyler was being manipulated by me and that I had clearly gotten to Rebecca as well. Patricia accused Tyler of being ungrateful after everything they had done for him over the years. The conversation got heated when Tyler asked Patricia to stop calling Rebecca at work. Patricia said she was only trying to protect Rebecca from making the same mistakes Tyler had made by trusting me. Dad backed Patricia up and said family members had a right to share concerns about each other. Tyler told them that if they couldn't respect his marriage and stop interfering, he would need to limit contact with them. Dad responded by saying that Tyler was choosing his unreliable brother over the parents who had sacrificed everything for him. This is where I learned something that changed my understanding of our family dynamics completely. During their argument, Patricia let slip that she had been monitoring Tyler's finances for years through accounts she helped him set up in college. Tyler came to my apartment 2 days after the confrontation looking shaken. He explained that when he was 18 and starting college, Patricia had helped him open his first bank account and credit cards. She had convinced him it was smart to have an experienced adult as a backup contact on his accounts in case of emergencies. What Tyler didn't realize was that Patricia had been regularly checking his account balances and transaction history. She knew exactly how much money he and Rebecca had, what they spent money on, and why they had to cut their wedding budget. Tyler said Patricia had been using this financial information to make comments about his spending choices for years. When Tyler bought something expensive, Patricia would make remarks about whether it was a wise purchase. When Tyler and Rebecca decided to skip professional wedding photography, Patricia already knew it was because they couldn't afford it. This explained why Patricia had been so confident in her calls to Rebecca about their finances. She wasn't guessing about their money situation. She had been spying on them through Tyler's bank accounts. Tyler was furious when he realized what had been happening. He went to his bank and removed Patricia's access to all his accounts. He also discovered that Patricia was listed as a beneficiary on his life insurance policy through work, something he had forgotten about from when he first got the job. When Tyler told Rebecca about Patricia's financial monitoring, Rebecca became upset for a different reason. She realized that Patricia had known personal details about their relationship that Tyler had never shared. Patricia had made comments to Rebecca about their apartment rent, Tyler's student loan payments, and even Rebecca's shopping habits. Rebecca felt violated knowing that Patricia had been essentially stalking their financial lives. She told Tyler she didn't feel comfortable having any relationship with someone who would invade their privacy that way. Tyler decided to confront Patricia about the financial monitoring. He called and asked her directly about accessing his bank accounts. According to Tyler, Patricia didn't deny it, but said she was only looking out for his best interests. She said young couples often make poor financial decisions and she wanted to make sure Tyler wasn't being taken advantage of. Tyler told Patricia that what she had done was a violation of his privacy and that he had removed her access to all his accounts. Patricia apparently got very angry and said Tyler was being ungrateful and foolish. She said she had helped him build good credit and financial habits, and that he would regret cutting her out. Dad called Tyler later that day and said Tyler was making a mistake by attacking Patricia over her concern for his welfare. Dad said Patricia had been like a real mother to Tyler and deserved respect, not accusations. He said if Tyler continued on this path, he might need to choose between his relationship with his parents or his relationship with me. Tyler told Dad that wasn't a choice he should have to make, but if forced to choose, he would pick the people who respected his boundaries and privacy. The conversation ended with Dad saying Tyler would regret turning his back on family for someone who had never been there for him. Tyler said that wasn't true and that I had been there for him when it mattered most, including at his wedding. Since then, Dad and Patricia have been trying different tactics to get Tyler back under their control. Patricia called Tyler's workplace to ask if there were any problems with his job performance, claiming she was concerned about his mental state. Tyler's boss was confused by the call and asked Tyler if everything was okay at home. Dad has been calling Rebecca's parents to share his concerns about Tyler's judgment and decision-making. Rebecca's mother called Rebecca to ask if Tyler was having some kind of breakdown because his father seemed very worried about him. The most disturbing incident happened last week. Tyler and Rebecca came home from work to find Patricia sitting in their apartment building lobby. She said she had been worried because Tyler hadn't been returning her calls and she wanted to make sure he was safe. Patricia followed them upstairs and tried to invite herself into their apartment. When Rebecca said it wasn't a good time, Patricia pushed past her and started looking around their home. She made comments about their furniture being cheap and their kitchen being poorly organized. Tyler asked Patricia to leave, but she said she wasn't finished talking to him. She sat down on their couch and said she wouldn't leave until Tyler agreed to meet with a family counselor of her choosing. She said Tyler was clearly having some kind of mental health crisis and needed professional help. Rebecca called the police because Patricia refused to leave their apartment. When the officers arrived, Patricia told them she was concerned about her son's welfare and was trying to stage an intervention. The police asked Tyler if he wanted to file trespassing charges, but he decided against it because he didn't want the situation to escalate further. However, the police did tell Patricia that she needed to leave the property and couldn't return without permission from Tyler and Rebecca. Patricia left but said this wasn't over and that she would find other ways to help Tyler whether he wanted it or not. Tyler has now decided to go completely no contact with Dad and Patricia. He changed his phone number and asked his workplace security to not allow Patricia access to the building where he works. He and Rebecca are considering moving to a different apartment to make it harder for Patricia to show up uninvited. Tyler apologized to me for not seeing how controlling and manipulative Dad and Patricia had been for years. He said he was embarrassed that it took Patricia invading his home for him to realize how far she was willing to go to maintain control over his life. Rebecca has been supportive throughout this whole situation, but she's also been stressed by Patricia's escalating behavior. She's worried that Patricia might try to interfere with her job or contact more of her family members. I've been trying to support Tyler and Rebecca while staying out of direct conflict with Dad and Patricia. I don't want to give them more ammunition to use against Tyler by making this about me. But I'm concerned about how far Patricia might go if she continues to feel like she's losing control over Tyler. Tyler asked if I thought he was overreacting by cutting contact with Dad and Patricia completely. I told him that only he could decide what level of contact felt safe and healthy for his marriage. But based on what I had experienced with them over the years, I understood why he felt the need for firm boundaries. The ironic part is that Dad and Patricia's efforts to turn Tyler against me ended up backfiring completely. Tyler now sees their behavior clearly and understands why I went no contact years ago. But I'm worried this isn't over and that Patricia might escalate further. Update 3: I'm writing this final update because several people have asked for more information about how things turned out with my family situation. The short answer is that Tyler and Rebecca are doing well, but Dad and Patricia have continued their problematic behavior in ways that surprised even me. After Tyler went no contact with Dad and Patricia, things were quiet for about a month. Tyler and Rebecca thought maybe Dad and Patricia had accepted the boundaries and moved on. They were wrong. The first sign of trouble came when Rebecca's workplace received an anonymous complaint about her job performance. The complaint claimed Rebecca had been making personal phone calls during work hours and seemed distracted and unprofessional. Rebecca's supervisor called her in to discuss the complaint, but Rebecca had no idea what it was about since she had never had performance issues. Rebecca suspected the complaint came from Patricia, but there was no way to prove it. The complaint was submitted online through the company's general feedback form and didn't include any specific details that could be verified. Around the same time, Tyler started getting calls from his college friends asking if he was okay. Apparently someone had been contacting Tyler's old fraternity brothers claiming to be concerned about Tyler's mental health and marriage. The caller said Tyler had been acting erratically and asked if anyone had noticed changes in his behavior. When Tyler called his friends back to explain the situation, he learned that the caller had claimed to be a family friend who was worried about Tyler but didn't want to get involved directly. The caller had shared details about Tyler's family relationships that could only have come from Dad or Patricia. The most serious incident happened 6 weeks ago. Tyler and Rebecca were having dinner at a restaurant near their apartment when Patricia appeared at their table. She had apparently been watching their building and followed them to the restaurant. Patricia sat down uninvited and said she missed Tyler and wanted to work things out. When Tyler said he wasn't ready to have that conversation, Patricia became louder and more emotional. She started crying and saying that Tyler was breaking her heart by shutting her out. Other diners were starting to stare, and Rebecca asked Patricia to lower her voice. Patricia responded by accusing Rebecca of turning Tyler against his family and ruining his relationships with people who loved him. The restaurant manager came over to ask if everything was okay. Patricia told the manager that she was Tyler's mother and was trying to reconcile with her son, but that Rebecca was preventing them from having a family conversation. Tyler stood up and said they were leaving. Patricia grabbed his arm and said she wouldn't let him walk away from family again. When Tyler pulled free, Patricia fell back into her chair and started crying loudly about Tyler being violent toward her. The restaurant manager asked Tyler and Rebecca to leave because Patricia's behavior was disrupting other customers. As they walked out, Patricia followed them and continued making a scene in the parking lot. Tyler finally told Patricia that her behavior was the reason he couldn't have a relationship with her. He said she had proven that she couldn't respect boundaries or treat Rebecca with basic courtesy. Patricia responded by saying that Rebecca was obviously controlling and manipulative if she couldn't see that Patricia was just trying to love Tyler. That incident convinced Tyler and Rebecca to move to a different part of the city. They found an apartment in a complex with security gates and didn't share their new address with anyone who might pass it along to Dad and Patricia. They also hired a lawyer to send Dad and Patricia a formal cease and desist letter. The letter outlined the harassment behaviors and warned that continued contact attempts could result in restraining order proceedings. Dad called Tyler from a different phone number after receiving the legal letter. Dad said Tyler was making a huge mistake and that family problems should be handled within the family, not through lawyers. He said Tyler was being influenced by people who didn't understand family loyalty. Tyler told Dad that he would consider rebuilding their relationship if Dad and Patricia agreed to respect his boundaries and stop contacting Rebecca or her family. Dad said those terms were unreasonable and that Tyler was asking them to pretend his marriage was more important than his original family. The call ended with Dad saying that Tyler would regret choosing outsiders over the people who raised him. Tyler hasn't spoken to Dad since then. Meanwhile, my relationship with Tyler and Rebecca has continued to improve. We have dinner together regularly, and they've introduced me to their friend group. Rebecca's parents have been welcoming to me, and I think they appreciate having another perspective on the family dynamics Tyler grew up with. Tyler has been working with a financial advisor to make sure his accounts and credit are fully separate from any influence Dad and Patricia might still have. He discovered that Patricia had been listed as an emergency contact on several of his accounts beyond just banking, including his health insurance and retirement fund from work. Rebecca has been dealing with occasional anonymous complaints at her workplace, but her supervisor now knows about the family situation and disregards any feedback that seems suspicious or lacks specific details. Last month, Tyler and Rebecca decided to have a small ceremony to renew their wedding vows. They wanted to celebrate their marriage in a way that focused on the people who supported their relationship rather than the drama that surrounded their original wedding. They invited about 20 people, including Rebecca's family, their close friends, and me. I photographed the ceremony as my gift to them, and this time Tyler specifically requested my help rather than me having to arrange it as a surprise. The vow renewal was beautiful and relaxed. Tyler and Rebecca looked genuinely happy, and it was clear that removing toxic family members from their lives had reduced their stress significantly. During his speech at the reception, Tyler thanked everyone for supporting his marriage and said he had learned that family isn't just about blood relationships, but about people who choose to love and respect each other consistently. He didn't mention Dad and Patricia directly, but several people who knew about the family situation understood what he meant. I haven't had any direct contact with Dad and Patricia since Tyler's original wedding. Occasionally I hear updates through mutual acquaintances, but I've made it clear that I'm not interested in information about their lives or attempts at reconciliation. My business has continued to grow, and I recently hired another photographer to help with the increased demand. Ironically, several people who attended Tyler's wedding have booked me for their own events after seeing the photos Jake and Emma took that night. Tyler asked me recently if I ever regret how everything played out with our family. I told him that I wish things could have been different, but that I'm proud of the life I've built and grateful for the relationship we have now. I also told him that seeing him stand up for his marriage and his own boundaries has been one of the most positive things to come out of this whole situation. Tyler said that watching me maintain my independence and success despite Dad and Patricia's disapproval had shown him that it was possible to have a good life without their approval. We still don't know if Dad and Patricia will eventually accept the new boundaries or if they'll continue trying to insert themselves into Tyler's life. But Tyler and Rebecca seem committed to maintaining their distance regardless of what Dad and Patricia choose to do. The main thing I've learned from this experience is that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their harmful behavior, even if they're family. Tyler and Rebecca are happier and more secure now that they've established clear boundaries with people who couldn't respect their relationship. As for me, I'm focusing on my business and my renewed relationship with Tyler. I'm not looking for reconciliation with Dad and Patricia, but I'm open to whatever the future brings as long as it doesn't compromise the peace and stability I've worked hard to create. Some people might think it's sad that our family fell apart over what started as a wedding photography situation. But I think the wedding just revealed problems that had been building for years. Sometimes families break apart not because of one big event, but because of accumulated patterns of disrespect and control that finally become impossible to ignore. Tyler and Rebecca are building their own family traditions now, and I'm grateful to be included in that process. Not every family story has a happy ending where everyone reconciles, but this one has an ending where the people who matter most are able to move forward in healthy ways. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My wife had been having an affair with my boss for 15 years and my son wasn't mine, but when he found out he refused to leave me for his real father. I am confused. I never thought I would be writing this post, but here I am. I need to get this off my chest as my whole world has turned upside down in the last few weeks. I am still trying to process everything that has happened and figure out what to do next. Some background information first. I have been married to my wife Monica for 17 years. We met during our final year of college when we were both studying business administration. Monica was the most beautiful girl in our class. Everyone wanted to date her, but she chose me, a simple guy from a middle-class family. We dated for 2 years before getting married right after graduation. Our families were against the marriage, saying we were too young and needed to focus on our careers first. But we were madly in love and convinced we could handle anything life threw at us. The first few years of marriage were tough. We both worked entry-level jobs trying to make ends meet. We lived in a tiny one-bedroom apartment and could barely afford groceries some months. Despite the financial struggles, we were happy. Monica was always optimistic and kept saying things would get better soon. Then came the biggest surprise of our lives. Monica was pregnant. We hadn't planned for a baby so soon, but were excited about becoming parents. However, the timing couldn't have been worse. Monica had just lost her job due to company downsizing and I was barely making enough to cover our basic expenses. This was when I got lucky and landed a job at Anderson & Partners, one of the top consulting firms in our city. My boss Peter personally hired me after a grueling interview process. He saw potential in me despite my lack of experience and took me under his wing. The salary was much better than my previous job and helped us prepare for the baby's arrival. Harold was born in winter of 2008. He was the most beautiful baby I had ever seen. Monica had a difficult pregnancy and delivery, so we decided she would stay home with Harold while I focused on building my career. Peter was very understanding and helped me learn everything about the consulting business. He would often work late with me, teaching me the tricks of the trade. Monica would sometimes bring Harold to office to have lunch with me. Everyone loved having them around, especially Peter. He would always make time to play with Harold and bring him small gifts. His wife Linda couldn't have children due to some medical issues, so he treated Harold like the son he never had. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was to what was really happening. Over the years, I worked hard and climbed the corporate ladder. We moved to a better neighborhood, bought a nice house, and could finally afford family vacations. Peter and Linda became close friends. We would spend holidays together, go on couple trips, and our families became inseparable. They even helped us financially when we were renovating our house. Monica was the perfect wife and mother. She took care of everything at home while I focused on work. She was active in Harold's school activities, hosted dinner parties for my colleagues, and everyone admired how well she managed everything. Peter would often comment on how lucky I was to have such a wonderful wife. The changes started about 6 months ago. Monica began acting differently. She started dressing up more even when staying at home. She got a new phone and would get very protective about it. If I came near her while she was texting, she would quickly lock the screen or turn it face down. When I asked about it, she said I was being paranoid and needed to trust her more. She also started showing more interest in my work schedule, especially my business trips. She would ask detailed questions about when I would leave and return. Whenever I had to travel, she would insist on not disturbing her in the evenings as she would be busy with her book club meetings or helping Harold with school projects. Last month, I had to go to Chicago for a week-long conference. 2 days into the trip, most of the meetings got canceled as the main client had a family emergency. I decided to return home early and surprise Monica. I didn't tell her I was coming back as I wanted to see her genuine reaction. I reached home around 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. The lights were on and I could hear music playing inside. I used my key to enter quietly, thinking I would surprise Monica in the kitchen where she usually prepared dinner at this time. But the kitchen was empty. I heard noises coming from upstairs. As I climbed the stairs, I started hearing voices from our bedroom. I recognized Monica's laugh, but there was also a man's voice. My heart started racing as I approached the door. What I saw when I opened it will haunt me forever. Monica was in bed with Peter. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't notice me at first. When Monica finally saw me standing in the doorway, she screamed and tried to cover herself. Peter jumped out of bed and started grabbing his clothes. I stood there frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. My wife and my boss, the two people I trusted most in my life, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Monica started crying and begging me to let her explain. She kept saying it wasn't what it looked like. Peter didn't say anything. He just got dressed and walked past me like I wasn't even there. I heard his car start and drive away as Monica continued crying and pleading with me. That night, after hours of crying and screaming, Monica finally told me everything. The affair had started just months after I joined the company. What began as innocent flirting during office parties turned into secret meetings and hotel rendezvous. They had been seeing each other behind my back for almost my entire career at the company. But the worst was yet to come. Through her tears, Monica confessed that Harold wasn't my biological son. She had gotten pregnant early in her affair with Peter but decided to pass the baby off as mine to avoid any scandal. She said she had wanted to tell me many times over the years but couldn't bear to hurt me. Everything made sense now, why Peter had always been so interested in Harold's life, why he treated him specially compared to other employees' children, why Harold had Peter's blue eyes while Monica and I both had brown eyes. I had never questioned it because the possibility of such betrayal had never crossed my mind. I kicked Monica out that night. I couldn't stand looking at her face or listening to her excuses anymore. She kept trying to convince me that despite everything, she did love me in her own way. But how can you say you love someone after lying to them for 15 years about their own child? The next day, I went to office early. I knew Peter would try to damage control the situation, so I beat him to it. I called an impromptu meeting with the entire department and exposed their affair in front of everyone. I also told Linda, who had just arrived for a breakfast meeting with Peter. The look of shock and pain on her face made me realize she had no idea about any of this. Peter tried to play it cool at first, saying I was making false accusations out of jealousy over his success. But when Linda confronted him about specific dates and incidents, he couldn't keep up the lies anymore. He got angry and threatened to fire me for creating a hostile work environment. Linda left the office in tears while everyone watched in shocked silence. The hardest part was telling Harold. I sat him down after school and tried to explain everything as gently as possible. To my surprise, he wasn't shocked at all. He told me he had known for about 2 years that I wasn't his biological father. He had overheard Monica talking to someone on phone about keeping the truth from me. He had done some research on genetics after that and realized that it was impossible for two brown-eyed parents to have a blue-eyed child. Harold said he never brought it up because he was afraid of losing me. He told me that regardless of biology, I was his real father, the one who had taught him to ride a bike, helped him with homework, coached his baseball team, and been there for every important moment of his life. He said he didn't want to have anything to do with Peter or Monica and wanted to continue living with me. Now I am stuck in this impossible situation. Monica wants Harold to build a relationship with his biological father. Peter is suddenly acting like he has rights over my son and is threatening legal action. Harold is refusing to see either of them and gets angry whenever I bring up the subject. I love Harold like my own flesh and blood, but I don't want to be the reason he misses out on having a relationship with his biological father. I need advice on how to handle this situation. Should I force Harold to meet Peter? Should I fight for custody or step aside since I am not his real father? Am I being selfish in wanting to keep Harold with me? Any suggestions would be appreciated. Edit. Thank you everyone for your support and advice. Many of you asked about the DNA test. Yes, I got it done immediately after Monica's confession and it confirmed that Harold is not my biological son. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since my original post. First, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and messages. The situation has gotten more complicated, and I need to get this off my chest. Monica moved back to her parents' house the day after I kicked her out. Her parents called me multiple times trying to convince me to give her another chance. They kept saying that marriages go through rough patches and that I should think about Harold's future. When I told them about the 15-year affair and Harold's real father, they went quiet. Apparently, Monica had told them I was being unreasonable about a recent minor indiscretion. Last week, I received a letter from Monica's lawyer. She is filing for divorce and wants full custody of Harold. Her lawyer claims that since I am not Harold's biological father, I have no legal rights over him. They are arguing that I am emotionally manipulating Harold and turning him against his mother and real father. The letter also mentioned that Peter is willing to take full financial responsibility for Harold's upbringing and education. I immediately hired Karen, a lawyer who specializes in family law. She was recommended by a colleague who went through a similar situation. Karen says we have a strong case because I'm listed as the father on Harold's birth certificate and have been acting as his father for 15 years. She also said that at Harold's age, the court will consider his preferences regarding custody. The situation at work has become unbearable. Peter tried to fire me claiming poor performance, but HR intervened. They said firing me right after I exposed the affair would look like retaliation and could lead to a lawsuit. Instead, they moved me to a different department on the other side of the building. Most of my colleagues are supportive, but office politics have made things awkward. Some people who used to be friendly now avoid me in the hallways or stop talking when I enter the break room. I overheard someone saying I should have handled things privately instead of creating drama at work. But how was I supposed to stay quiet about such betrayal? Linda, Peter's wife, filed for divorce last week. She hired a private investigator who discovered that Peter had multiple affairs over the years. Monica wasn't his first or only mistress. Linda came to see me and apologized for not believing me years ago when I mentioned Peter's inappropriate behavior with female employees. She had noticed signs, but Peter always managed to convince her she was being paranoid. The most shocking development came when Monica's sister Rachel reached out to me. Rachel and I were never close as she lives in another state, but she felt I needed to know the whole truth. She revealed that Monica and Peter had been planning to leave their spouses and start a new life together. They were waiting for Harold to turn 18 before making their relationship public. Rachel showed me screenshots of conversations between her and Monica from the past few years. Monica had been confiding in her sister about the affair. She would complain about how tired she was of living a double life and how Peter kept promising to leave Linda but never did. In one message, Monica wrote that she only stayed with me because I provided financial stability while Peter provided the excitement she craved. What made my blood boil was discovering their financial deception. Rachel revealed that Monica had been transferring money from our joint account to a secret account for years. Every month, she would move $500,1000 claiming it was for Harold's college fund. But actually, she used that money to fund her lifestyle with Peter, expensive hotels, gifts, weekend getaways disguised as business trips. When I confronted Monica about this, her response made me sick. She blamed me for being too focused on work and not giving her enough attention. She said Peter understood her emotional needs better and made her feel special. According to her, I should be grateful that she stayed with me all these years instead of leaving with Peter early in their affair. Harold is handling everything better than I expected. His school counselor says he's maintaining his grades and participating in activities normally. But he absolutely refuses to see Peter despite Monica's constant attempts to force a meeting. He deleted Monica's number from his phone after she kept sending him guilt-tripping messages about denying his real father a chance to know him. Last week, Peter showed up at Harold's school during lunch break. He tried to talk to Harold in the parking lot, claiming he had rights as his biological father. Harold called me immediately, and I had to leave an important meeting to handle the situation. When I arrived, Peter was still there, trying to convince Harold to hear him out. I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave immediately. After this incident, Karen suggested we file for a restraining order against Peter. She says his behavior at the school could be considered harassment, especially since Harold has clearly expressed his wish not to have any contact with him. We have a court hearing next week to discuss this. Monica's latest move was to start a smear campaign against me in our social circle. She's telling everyone that I was an emotionally distant husband who neglected her needs, forcing her to seek comfort elsewhere. Some of our mutual friends have taken her side, saying I am being too harsh and should think about reconciliation for Harold's sake. What these people don't understand is that this isn't just about the affair. Monica and Peter didn't just betray my trust, they stole 15 years of my life through their lies. They let me believe I was Harold's father while laughing behind my back. How can anyone expect me to forgive such calculated deception? I am trying to stay strong for Harold, but some days are harder than others. Every happy memory I had of our family now feels tainted. I keep questioning every moment of our marriage, wondering what else was a lie. The only thing keeping me going is Harold's unconditional love and his choice to stay with me despite everything. This whole situation has taught me that blood doesn't make a family, love and loyalty do. I may not be Harold's biological father, but I am the one who has been there for him every day of his life. No court or DNA test can change that fact. Update 2. 2 months have passed since my last update. I never thought the situation could get worse, but it has. The divorce proceedings have turned incredibly ugly. Monica is demanding half of everything, including the house I bought mostly with my inheritance money. Her lawyer argues that since she was a stay-at-home mom for several years after Harold was born, she deserves substantial alimony for sacrificing her career. My lawyer Karen says Monica's affair and financial fraud will significantly impact the divorce settlement. We have solid evidence of her stealing money from our joint account over the years. The total amount she transferred to her secret account exceeds $100,000. When the judge saw the bank statements, he ordered a complete audit of our finances. Last week's custody hearing was intense. Monica came prepared with a whole new narrative about our marriage. She claimed I was an emotionally abusive husband who controlled her every move. According to her testimony, I monitored her spending, isolated her from friends, and made her depend on me financially. She said she stayed in the marriage only because she feared losing Harold. Peter testified in Monica's favor. He claimed he had witnessed me being aggressive at work multiple times, especially towards female colleagues. He painted a picture of me as a dominating person who used my position to intimidate others. I couldn't believe how easily he could lie under oath. Fortunately, several of my colleagues stepped forward to dispute these claims. They testified about Peter's history of inappropriate behavior with female employees and how he often used his position to pressure younger staff members. 3 women from the office also came forward with stories about how Peter had made unwanted advances towards them over the years. The biggest bombshell came from Linda. After filing for divorce, she had hired a private investigator to look into Peter's past affairs. The investigator discovered something none of us expected. Peter and Monica have a secret child together. They had given the baby up for adoption 12 years ago. When this evidence was presented in court, Monica finally broke down. She admitted that she had gotten pregnant during their affair around the time Harold was 3. Peter convinced her to give the baby up for adoption to protect their secret. They worked with a private adoption agency in another state and never told anyone about it. The judge was furious about this deception, especially since Monica had been demanding custody of Harold while hiding the existence of another child. Her credibility was completely destroyed. The revelation also impacted Peter's attempt to claim parental rights over Harold, as it showed a pattern of abandoning his children when it suited him. Harold took the news about his secret sibling very hard. He locked himself in his room for days after finding out. When he finally opened up to me, he said he felt betrayed all over again. Not only had his mother lied about his real father, but she had also hidden the existence of his biological sister or brother. Last week, Harold asked me to help him find his sibling. He said he has a right to know about his biological family history, especially regarding any genetic health conditions. While I understand his curiosity, I'm worried about opening this can of worms. The adopted child might not know they're adopted, or their family might not want any contact. Monica tried to use Harold's interest in finding his sibling as leverage. She offered to share all the information about the adoption if he agreed to spend weekends with her and Peter. Harold refused, saying he would find his sibling through legal channels rather than make deals with people who had lied to him his whole life. The private investigator Linda hired also uncovered financial records showing that Peter had been supporting Monica in more ways than we knew. He had set up a separate company in her name and was channeling money through it, possibly to avoid taxes. This information has now been turned over to the relevant authorities. Karen says all these revelations strengthen our case for both the divorce settlement and custody arrangements. The judge seems inclined to consider Monica's deception and financial fraud when making his final decision. We have another hearing scheduled for next month where the custody arrangement will be finalized. Meanwhile, Harold has started talking about changing his last name to mine legally. He says he doesn't want to have any connection to Peter's family name once the truth about his birth certificate comes out. While I'm touched by this gesture, I told him to take time and think it through carefully. These are big decisions that shouldn't be made in anger. Update 3. It's been 6 months since everything came to light. The dust has finally started to settle. The divorce was finalized last week, and things turned out better than expected. Due to Monica's documented infidelity, financial fraud, and the hidden adoption, she got much less than she demanded. The judge awarded me the house since I had paid for most of it with my inheritance. She only got a portion of our joint savings after returning the money she had stolen over the years. The custody battle ended in my favor as well. The judge granted me primary custody of Harold with Monica getting supervised visitation rights every other weekend. However, Harold still refuses to see her. Peter also got limited visitation rights as the biological father, but Harold maintains his stance of not wanting any relationship with him. I left Anderson and Partners last month. The work environment had become too toxic to handle. Peter tried to make my life difficult by assigning impossible deadlines and criticizing my work in front of clients. Surprisingly, his behavior worked in my favor. 3 major clients who witnessed his unprofessional conduct followed me when I joined Stewart Consulting, a competing firm. My new position pays significantly better and the work environment is much healthier. Monica and Peter moved in together after both their divorces were finalized. They bought a house in the upscale part of town and seem happy together. However, their actions have cost them dearly in terms of relationships. Most of their friends have cut ties with them. Even Monica's parents, who initially supported her, have distanced themselves after learning about the secret adoption. Harold has started seeing a counselor to help him process everything. He's doing much better now and has joined the school basketball team. His grades have improved, and he's talking about college plans. We managed to locate his biological sibling, a girl named Emma living with her adoptive family in Colorado. Her parents were understanding when we reached out and agreed to let Harold and Emma exchange letters. They want to wait until both kids are 18 before allowing any direct contact. Linda has become an unexpected ally throughout this ordeal. She helped us navigate the legal process and even testified against Peter despite his attempts to buy her silence. She recently moved to Florida to start fresh but stays in touch regularly. She treats Harold like a nephew and sends him birthday and Christmas gifts. The financial investigation into Peter's company revealed extensive tax fraud. The authorities are building a case against him. Several former employees have come forward with evidence of his unethical business practices. There's talk that he might face criminal charges. Monica is also implicated in some of these dealings through the shell company he set up in her name. I've started dating again recently, though taking things very slow. Met someone named Amy through a mutual friend. She's divorced too and understands the importance of putting kids first. Harold seems comfortable around her, which is a good sign. But I'm not rushing into anything serious. My priority remains helping Harold navigate this challenging phase of his life. Some people still ask why I chose to keep fighting for custody of a child who isn't biologically mine. They don't understand that being a father isn't about DNA. It's about being there every day, sharing both joy and pain, and putting your child's needs before your own. Harold is my son in every way that matters. Looking back at these 6 months, I realized that while the truth hurt terribly, it also set us free from living a lie. Harold and I are building a stronger relationship based on honesty and trust. We're not just surviving this crisis, we're growing stronger through it. The road ahead might not be easy, but we'll face it together as father and son. This will be my last update. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and encouragement helped me stay strong when things got tough. 002E